Good afternoon, everybody, or morning, or evening, or whenever you're watching this. So this is a 2015 Mack, has a ISL 9 engine, I believe. So problem I'm having with this is not building air pressure. It'll build air pressure, and then all of a sudden it'll just kind of stop building air pressure, and it'll start dropping, and then it will kind of kick in. So obviously we're having an air pressure related issue. So I was going to explain a little bit about how these air systems work on these trucks. So, oops, my flashlight's dead. That one works. Alright, so the main component is the air compressor. This right here is, oh, it's a pretty bright light. So, this right here is the air compressor. That's the top. So this is the head of it. Basically, it's kind of like an engine. It's got a head, and it's got a body, and it bolts to the back of the timing cover here, where it's gear driven. And it's got a piston and a connecting rod and a crank and stuff in there. This one is a pass-through compressor. So you see this thing right here. This is a power steering pump that's bolted to the back of that. So basically, it just allows it to drive the power steering pump as well. Not all of them have the pass-through like that. Some of them have a plate, and that's it. Generally, I see them with a power steering pump on the back, though. So, anyway, so inside the cylinder head, there is the unloader valve. This one has like kind of like a feather plate that moves. Some have little valves on the top that are under a little plate that's on the top of there. So, basically, that piston in there is always pumping, and it's always moving, and the way you stop it from continuously filling the tank is it shifts the unloader valve. So I believe what that does is it takes the output and it just recirculates the air that it's pumping back to the input, and it just cycles it around. And so when the unloader valve is shifted to the pressure side, it'll block off the inlet, or block off one of the ports, and it will start pumping air in and then out to the tanks. So if you're having a non-pressuring or a non-air building issue, you could either have the valves could be sticking in the head for the unloader valve, or the governor could be not shifting as well. So right here, this is the governor. This controls the unloader valve that is inside the compressor. So what happens is, this is preset to cut in at like 90 to 105 pounds, somewhere around there, and it's set to cut out at like 120 to 130. So this gets a feed from the air tanks that go into it, and there's a spring-loaded piston inside here. So as this pressure is basically, so that spring will hold the pressure off of the air, and it will allow there to be no pressure on the unloading line or the sensing line that goes into this compressor here. So when there's no air on that line, it should be making pressure. When there is air on that little line, this little line right here, it shouldn't be making pressure. So basically, if you run out of air, there's no air on there. If there's no air in your tanks, and then that unloader valve will come off, and then you'll build up pressure until you add pressure to that line, and it'll shift the unloader valve, and it will stop making pressure. So, like I say, so the way it's controlled is, like I say, the spring in that regulator. So that spring is set to move at a certain, obviously, pressure. So what'll happen is the pressure coming in will work on a piston. There's a little piston in there that slides, and it opens and closes these valves here, or the lines. So you got pressure coming in. Right now the spring will be over, so it's not letting air into this line here. So when this pressure from the tank builds up to a certain amount, it'll shift it over, and then air can come around and come through this unloading line and unload the piston and unload the compressor so that it stops pumping. You could have other lines on here for other things. Like this one right here actually goes down here to a valve that runs the air clutch on the fan. So not everything here is specifically for the compressor. I see this governor can actually be on the compressor as well. On this one, obviously, it's detached. I think this is a system saver. This is a Wabco compressor. Like the Bendix ones, I believe the governors are usually on the compressor. Not necessarily has to be that way, but that's what I've seen on the internationals. So, like I say, that's basically the general way that the governor and the net works. So the airflow will come out of this compressor here, and it runs along a line back here to the air dryer. So this is the air dryer here. So you got this kind of braided hose right here coming in, and then the air gets dried in here, and then it comes out this other line right there next to it, the big one, and it goes to the wet tank, or the first tank. This truck has 3 tanks on it, so it goes forward to the wet tank, and then you got these 2 that branch off of it, and then the air is tapped in off of these mostly. So this has obviously other lines on it as well. Let's see if I can explain what some of them are to you. So that little line that you saw up there, or up here, this one right here, this is, like I say, the unloader line to the compressor. And then this one right here next to it, this is also on the unloading circuit. This goes to the air dryer, which is back here. So once that cuts off and adds pressure to it, it'll add air to this, and then this will blow off. So whenever you hear the trucks make the big psh noise, that's the air dryer blowing off because the system's fully pressurized. There is another little nylon line coming off of it. It's under the big one there, right between them. That one goes to another bottle on the other side. I don't exactly know what that one's for, but like I say, it's just another small little tank. If I walk over and show you. So it's this little tank here. So that second line is just that one right there into this tank. Looks like there's a drain on the bottom, so I imagine it's probably just another drain. Like I say, we're having an issue with it charging intermittently. So it is working now, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult to figure out exactly what the problem is. But I pulled this line off, and I charged the system up, and once we reached to about 130, I could hear air coming out of the regulator right here. Once I had that disconnected, so pretty much it dropped down to once I shut the truck off, it stopped charging. So you got to have that on, otherwise the compressor will just keep compressing, and it'll keep raising the pressure in the tanks, which can get dangerous if it gets too high. So, like I say, the issue could be, like I say, either in the cylinder head of the compressor not shifting over, or the unloading valve not shifting over, or it could be this governor here getting stuck in the bore and the spring not pushing it back. So basically I gotta kind of mess around with it until I get it to do it, and then I gotta come out here and pull this line off and see if I have pressure on that line. If I do have air coming out of that line, then it's the governor. If I don't have air coming out of that line, then it's the compressor, or it's the compressor head. So I guess that's what I gotta do now. So at this truck, the cut in is around 100. I got it down to, what is that, 90, and it was just sitting there. So it's building, but it's not building very fast at all. And you can hear it kind of puffing there. So I'm thinking that my problem is going to be in the compressor. See, it's building pressure, but it's building pressure really slow. It ought to go a lot faster than that. Alright, so I took the inlet pipe and the outlet pipe off. I'm going to start the truck up, and I'm going to spray some penetrating oil and stuff in there and try to get that that leaf blade shut off thing freed up a little bit better. Don't know if it'll make a big difference. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I might possibly have a restriction down the line somewhere I'm unaware of, but I figured I'd start with this. So I pumped some of that penetrating lubricant in there, and ended up putting this rag on the outlet exhaust side, so I wasn't just pumping and the stuff everywhere. And I pulled the line back off, and I was holding the air line there, or air hose nozzle up against it, and I was adding air to it. And I could hear the pump switching in there, on and off. So I think it's working. I don't know if it's working better. It was working before. It just, like I say, it was kind of sticking. So hopefully that kind of flushed it out. It didn't look dirty inside there. I was expecting to kind of see a lot of soot in there from the exhaust EGR system kind of getting back in, but it seems to be pretty clean. So I'll tighten them back up, put the line back on, and see if that helps. Let's say if it's not in the compressor, then I guess the air dryer could be an issue if it's not making its way through the air dryer, if there's a restriction here. But so I'm not exactly sure. I initially ordered one of these yesterday, so I got one coming. I can try it if it comes out. They're actually fairly expensive, so I'd rather not use it if that's not what the problem is. But anyway, so I could see that it wasn't the governor, just because, like I say, it was building up real slow. So unless there's a restriction someplace or the compressor isn't fully engaging, then it shouldn't be really the governor, because that's more of an on and off thing. And but based on when we pulled the unloading line off, there was no air pressure there, so that seems to be working like it's supposed to. So I'll put them lines on and run it, see if we can see if that's the problem. Just in case you're wondering, for anyone that might question it, I'm not taking the cylinder head off of the compressor. I'm trying not to, because one, those are torque to yield bolts, and two, you can see that it goes underneath the pump there, and that bolt is like right up against it. So I'm gonna have to take apart like the injection pump, or I need to remove the compressor totally to get that cylinder head off. So I'm trying to kind of get this thing working without pulling the pump out. So that's why I'm trying it this way. So I was getting some kind of funky results with this. It seemed to be working perfectly fine when I had the lines off. It was coming in one side, coming out the other, and this was operating. When I put air to this, I could hear it back feeding through the intake. So that seemed to be working all right. I hooked up the discharge line that goes to the tanks, and I started getting some weird things, like it was actually pumping out the intake for a little bit here or there, and it would kind of pump out the intake, and then it would come out the exhaust correctly, and then it would like back feed and blah 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 come out the intake. So a little bit strange. So I decided to see if I had any other issues anywhere else, see if maybe I have a blockage. So I tried to get the line off the tank that comes out of this air dryer, and it was the fitting. It's one of those quick fittings, and it was all seized up, so I didn't want to touch it. So I pulled the nylon feed line that goes to that tank off here, and I wasn't getting almost anything out of that. It was barely even coming out, and I could hear the compressor kind of kicking, like back feeding and kicking back. So I came over here and I took this line off. Oops, I don't know if you can see. I took the supply line off, and I'm getting plenty of air out of there. So let me start it back up and show you. So we're getting air out of there when I do that. When I had this hooked up, I wasn't getting almost anything out of this port. So starting to think maybe my air dryer is the problem. Maybe it's just kind of blocked up or clogged up or whatever the deal is, and it's not working anymore. So I do have another one I could probably throw on. So that's the air dryer right there that I got. So I can try to throw that on. I hate to just throw a part on there. I guess I could put well, I don't have a pressure gauge I can hook to that. That's the problem. But basically it comes out of the compressor, comes along the line here, and into the air dryer, out of the air dryer, into that first tank. So it's either the compressor or the air dryer, because it's not the governor, because that's not hooked up. So with the old one, new one, if you need to change one of these out, you're gonna need this number that's right here on the tag. Yeah, so it's this big long number for the Wabco. So I got to take these apart in kind of like a order, because everything's going to bump into each other. So I got to take this off, then this one, then this one, and this one can come out really at any time, but I got to take the fitting off so I can spin this out from underneath that, unless I take that off. So that's how you got to do that. Then I'm going to clean up all the threads on the wire wheeling thing, and some Teflon tape in there and stick them in. So if you're ever wondering how to get these out, I was using like a little tool, just a little fork, but basically the nylon hose goes in there, and this outside collar is loose, and this is what retains the hose. So when pressure's put on it, this pulls out and bites into the hose. So what you need to do is you need to push this down into itself, and then you can pull the hose out. You can use a wrench that's the size of the hose, or you can use those little tools that I had. I'll show you. This is what they look like. It's basically just a fork, and it goes in there around the line, and you pull it down on it, and you can pull the line out. So there's two sides, so you can probably come in like that, or like that.
Got the bracket mounted in kind of a funny direction. It's upside down. Here's that. Probably can't see too much, can you? Yeah, that might be a little bit better. About the best I can do. So, let's hook this line up here first. This one's going to be the hardest. push this line in over here. Plug the plug in. Over here. Let me start this up, see if I get air out. Well, we're getting air out, so that's a whole different story from the last one. Kind of wish I'd done that in the beginning. Would have saved myself some time. So let's see if it charges up. Well, I'm pretty sure that was it. We're gonna take it out, run it. It keeps trying to do a regeneration. That's why the RPMs keep running up like that. So I only got about 15 minutes left of today, so I'll have to do that in the morning. But I'll extend the video if that was not the fix. But like I say, I mean, kind of interesting. Learn something new every day. So I hope that can help somebody. Thanks for watching.